Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Becoming a Professional. I'm your host, Danielle Bradley, and also have Riley here assisting behind the scenes as always. Before we introduce our special guests, let's go through our usual housekeeping items. The episode is brought to you by the National Chapter of Beta Alpha Psi. Thank you again, as always, to the enormous support of the organization for this podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to sign up for the Alumni and Member Network so that way we can engage with all of you and you can access all of the amazing resources available online. A disclaimer, the opinions in this podcast are our own and may not reflect the position of Beta Alpha Psi or our respective employers. Well, we're here in Orlando, Florida at the 2024 annual meeting, and I'm excited to be here joined by our two very special guests. Please welcome Gleim's University Partner Managers, Valerie Wendt and Alex Graham. Woo-hoo. How are you guys today?
We're wonderful.
I'm doing absolutely great.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so glad that you guys could be here. We're going to be going through, in this episode specifically, I feel is almost like a passing of the torch, which I know we'll get into, but wanted to start with getting our listeners more information on you and the origin story, talking about definitely career, transition, some of the main heavy hitter discussions that are brought up for those in the podcast that view and listen. So starting off, could you give a little background of where you went to school and what you decided to major in and why? And we'll start with you, Alex.
So I was a little bit of a non-traditional path to get to where I am today. I went to the University of Florida, go Gators. I started with a bachelor's of English literature, specifically focusing on Caribbean literature. It was just something that had my heart. But I was also pre-occupational therapy. So my eventual goal was to go back to get a master's in occupational therapy. So I took about half English classes, about half medical classes, very weird combination, but after I graduated, I was set to go into the military. I was going to be an officer, and I specifically at that point had kind of changed direction towards aviation. I wanted to be a pilot. I was headed into the Navy, and I thought, I wonder if I could find a job that might kind of be comparable to that in the civilian world before I go off and finalize everything with the military. And funny enough, Gleim is actually an aviation test prep company too. Oh. So it's what drew me to the company. As I got in and kind of like got my feet wet and everything, I found my way over to the accounting side of things though. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Wow. That, I feel like you just have so many interests. I'm excited to dive further into all of those, but what a path to just where you are now. And then Val, can you give us a little bit of background too?
Sure. So, after graduating high school, I went off immediately to college to SIU Carbondale with the full intention of graduating in 4 years and becoming a stenographer, a court reporter. I mean, that was what I had always envisioned doing. But as would happen, life happened. I met my husband and quit school, and so did not finish school, which was very aggravating to my parents. And so as, we started our married life together, it wasn't until probably 12 to 15 years later that I got hired by the first company I worked for in this space, Bisque Education, and they were innovative in working with universities and bringing their platforms online. It was before online learning really started, and one of the benefits of working for the company at the time was they would pay for my tuition and my books if I went back to school. And so I saw it as an immediate opportunity for me to fulfill my desire to get my degree. And so I enrolled in St. Leo University online and completed my bachelor's degree with a degree in business administration and a minor in MIS. And my parents were thrilled that I finally fulfilled my promise to complete my college degree. My family was ecstatic. I actually graduated a weekend apart from my daughter from college. So she graduated from UCF one weekend, and then the following weekend, I graduated from St. Leo University with my degree. Wow. So pretty exciting stuff.
Wow. Well, I feel like there's so many themes of messages about, one, sticking to your passions, aligning your passions with that. So I'd love to start there. And I know, Alex, you had mentioned passion for aviation and kind of figuring out what you wanted to do. In terms of military, my husband's in the service, so I can always appreciate the respect of men and women that are fighting for us in our country. So as you're going through that decision of whether I go into the military or if I find something in the civilian world, what were some of those considerations that led you to where you are now at Gleim and finding something that you thought could align both of those together?
Absolutely. I think this is true for somebody going into the military, even going into the civilian world. You're thinking about things like your overall salary, any kind of bonuses, housing allowances, things like that normally would come with the military. You might not see that in the civilian world, but there are other things such as vacation time and things like that you can kind of look for, things that were important to me to have kind of a great work-life balance overall. I think the thing that really finally made my decision to stay in the civilian world was I'm such a homebody, and I know that you don't really have a choice when it comes to the military. If they ask you to move, you move. So I think that was kind of my last final decision as to let me see what I can do. I think at the time I was kind of still thinking I would end up in the military, but once I got to Gleim and I kind of spread my wings and I loved it, I realized that this was really what I wanted to do.
And for you, Val, in the space, I know that you mentioned getting into with a provider. Now you've been at Gleim, you've had a great career at Gleim. Can you talk about that transition and maybe also speak to the efforts that you're seeing more digitally as well and how that maybe piqued your interest or what led you to continue with the career path that you've had?
Well, when I graduated with my degree and I was employed by actually another provider in the space, and they just afforded me so much opportunity and just seeing the way that technology was growing in this field and the way it reached so many people, and it provided so much more opportunity for individuals who would not be able to complete their careers or their education in a more traditional format. I just saw so much opportunity there. And I was blessed to be able to have taken advantage of that and saw how that impacted my own life. And, as my employer was thrilled, I was one of the first graduating classes of this new online program that they were working. So I was kind of like the guinea pig, and they saw the success of it, and it really helped launch the online learning and just seeing the way that expanded to what it is today with all the universities and their online programs and the way that they can help individuals within their schedules, be able to continue their education, yet have a life with their family, have a work life. It just affords them so much more opportunity. And as I continued working for that company, and we went through a merger, acquisition by another larger public company, and stay in that space, my degree helped me advance within those organizations, which I was so thankful for. And then just, when I got exposed to the CPA test prep space at my first company, they're the ones that exposed me to Bay Alpha Psi as well. I just got drawn to students. I could relate to them. Even though I was older, I still remember my time in college and the excitement of seeing them succeed and then my desire to help them succeed. And so that's what's kept me in this space. And even though my career has included continuing education for CPAs and maintaining their license, and half of my career was related to students and faculty in the exam prep space, I found myself drawn to the academic and the student and professor side of the space just because I just felt more relatable to them, and I saw much more reward in seeing how people could succeed.
Yeah, the impact that you're making.
I felt the impact. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good way to say it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of took the next question from me I was about to ask, but I wanted to get some background on your first introduction to Beta Alpha Psi, what that looked like, how maybe you felt. Obviously, you've been affiliated with the organization now. So Val, can you give us some background on what that first introduction to Beta Alpha Psi did look like?
So I'm going to make you all jealous here when I say this. My first introduction to Beta Alpha Psi was at the annual meeting that was held in Hawaii.
Oh, we've heard such great things. I wish I could have been there.
Oh, my goodness. Even just leading up to that meeting, our organization helped chapters get their students there because of the travel costs.
Yeah.
And so being able to see students be able to make that trip and then to be there, having a luau, as one of the dinners, was like, it was just an incredible experience. And I recall coming back, and we exhibited there as a company, and then coming back from that, I knew instantly that I remember telling my boss, I'm like, I don't care where this organization goes. I want to be with that company, that organization, anytime you can let me go. And she was transitioning out of the company. She was retiring, and she just willingly handed it over to me. And I was so thankful for that. And I've been with the organization ever since. And so I got more and more involved each and every year. And I cannot say enough about this organization and what it has done for me personally, professionally. It's just been incredible. It's been an incredible ride.
Wow. And Alex, for yourself, obviously, being a part of Gleim now, you mentioned initially transitioning to the aviation space, and now you're on the CPA or provider of the educational requirements. Can you speak to that transition and then also your first introduction to Beta Alpha Psi?
Absolutely. When I got to Gleim, I didn't really spend much time with the aviation side of things. They really saw that my strong suit was in the connections, in the long-term relationships. And they said, hey, we'd really like for you to think about this position over here. It happened to be in the university space, primarily working with university professors, but along with that, obviously, comes the students. My first interaction with the Beta Alpha Psi was in 2017. I think it was Anaheim, definitely in California. I was just an exhibitor, though, so I wasn't a professional partner. I literally just went and set up the booth and kind of gave away cool stuff, helped man the prize wheel and stuff. So this year is actually my first year experiencing what a professional partner does and what kind of value that professional partners bring to the table for Beta Alpha Psi.
You guys are just naturally transitioning this for me. They're making my life so easy. That's the next commentary is on being a professional partner and what that means to you. If you can expand, obviously we have a wide array of professional partners, but as students are engaging with them, I don't think sometimes they see the full impact or understand exactly what's happening behind the scenes, right? They get these little snippets here and there of what you're doing or who you are in the exhibit halls or the professional sessions and the networking opportunities. But could you both speak from your perspective of what it is to be a professional partner and what that means to you? And we'll start with you, Val.
Yeah. So early on, when professional partners, and they weren't even called professional partners when I joined, I think they were called the Advisory Forum. I think that was the name of them at the time. That just dates me back way long ago. And I thought it was interesting that they changed the name to professional partners because that's really what we are. But it's been a struggle, I think, even for the organization to make students aware of all that professional partners can provide them. And I think it's only been in recent years where that has really been made made them more aware of who we are. But being a professional partner means, of course, a financial support for the organization because we know how expensive things are, and the professional partners we're the ones that help support meetings, both mid-year and now annual meetings in a variety of aspects, and other sponsorships, providing content, both from a technical, soft skills capabilities. But being a professional partner, from my perspective, has allowed me to make more connections. Being a professional partner with Beta Alpha Psi has really been instrumental in me building my own personal network professionally. And I firmly believe that I would not be where I am in my career had it not been for my connections in Beta Alpha Psi. They have really allowed me and provided me the confidence and the stepping stones and the contacts for me to be able to do what I'm doing. And so I'm forever thankful for the way that they have helped me build my network. It has also allowed me an opportunity to build my ability in speaking on a variety of subjects. Many times you hear of an exam prep company, and I've even provided this advice to Alex. I said, I signed up for everything that came up. I didn't turn down anything. If there was a task force, if there was a group that needed to get together to talk about a problem and to solve an issue with Beta Alpha Psi, I was one of the first ones to count me in. I want to be a part of that. And it's allowed me to meet more people outside of people that would be interested in exam prep, because you can only talk about the CPA exam so many times. And I didn't want to be the person that you only called on me when you wanted to hear about the exam. I wanted you to call on me because I had something to say,
Yep.
and that you valued what I had to say. And so as I learned from others, I had an ability to speak to many, many chapters on more than the CPA or CMA or CIA or EA exam, which Gleim does. But I was also able to talk to them about how important it is to build your network. In my personal story on building the network has been really helpful. I was able to speak to them on resume writing, on interview skills, on various other soft skills that I had real experience in and could advise confidently on. And so that was cool to see as chapters started reaching out to me to speak on more topics than just the exam. Now, of course, I always put a plug in for my company. I would never not do that. Go Gleim. But it really has allowed me to expand my technical content. And so I've really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The various breadths of scope of not only what a professional partner can provide to students, but what it gives yourself.
Right.
In that relationship.
And I think also, as I was coming up through Beta Alpha Psi and the professional partners, I remember, can I share a little bit about my first little bit of experiences with Beta Alpha Psi? I remember it was regional meetings then, and I remember going to the Southwest Regional meeting, and I was asked to judge best practices. I had no idea what that was. I didn't know what best practices, I knew what best practices means, obviously, but with regard to the competition, I had no idea what I was walking into. And I remember walking into the room where these students were going to be doing these presentations, and my fellow judge was Alex Miller. Mm-hmm. And I sat down, and I think it was just her and I. And we were the only two judges. I've never done it before. She's super experienced. I was so thankful for that. I remember sitting down next to her, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what do we do here? And so we had no judging forms like we do today. We had no guidelines on what we were looking for. And she basically told me is that we're going to choose the best school that does the best job presenting on a particular topic. I'm like, okay. So I watched the presentations, and then we met after to kind of debrief and pick a winner. But I came away from that thinking, oh, this could be so much better. We could do a better job here, do the whole process. And it has grown. I mean, I had input into helping that. I certainly am not the one that created the new process today, but I'm so thankful for that process. And then as each year rolled on, and I saw the individuals who were taking the lead as the partner chairs, and they were all from accounting firms. That's the individuals that held that job. And I remember one year, Blaine Rushak was the professional partner chair, and then, of course, went on to become Beta Alpha Psi president. It was opened up to the floor, anybody who would be interested in taking on the role of professional partner chair. And I thought, they're never going to allow an exam prep company to lead this organization. I'm like, that is like so far out of the norm. But I approached Blaine, and I'm like, so what do you think about me throwing my hat in? Mm-hmm. He's like, well, we've never had an exam prep provider take on that role. He goes, but I don't know why not. Yep. And so I was the first exam prep provider to become professional partner chair. And I was like, it was the coolest experience I could tell. I mean, I enjoyed it so much that I did it again a few years later. But it really, Blaine encouraged me so much early on in my experience with Beta Alpha Psi. He taught me how to be the co-liaison. He taught me how to be a chair. Taught me how to lead leadership activities, which was way outside my comfort zone. But I attribute a lot of my success in the organization to those early leaders.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of mentorship is so impactful with this organization, and very similar for me when I was a student even in the organization. I remember having an offer, and I knew where I was going. I was starting with KPMG, so some individuals at that point may say, I don't need a network. I have it figured out. And I took the opposite way. I was like, I want to talk to as many people and make as many connections. And it's just a way to build that experience and exposure. And I'm so thankful I did that, because I eventually made a career transition earlier than I was expecting in my career. And the first people I called were the professional partners that I had built those relationships with. And I said, hey, I'm open, I'm looking, and they're a great connector into the space.
They are.
And even now being affiliated with the organization for so many years now, still as an alumni, now transitioning into an executive with my firm, I've gotten so many mentorship opportunities. Yep. And so don't underestimate the power of your network, building relationships, but also the mentorships that you can have through our professional partners. So it's a great example of both presently and your future. Take advantage of the network that we do have.
It never stops. It just never stops. Yeah.
And then Alex, for you, I know that you're coming into this space. This is your first meeting acting as a professional partner, but can you speak to what you see the value in being a professional partner at this point in time for you?
Absolutely. It's been incredible to learn from my own mentor, Valerie. I'm really glad that she came along to show me the ropes. But to me, I didn't realize how well-rounded the professional partners were as an entire group and how involved they are with Beta Alpha Psi and how they really are the glue that holds everything together until this trip. So I'm very so much getting my feet wet and learning everything that there is to do and to help with that mentorship. But, the other thing it has also helped me with is just strengthening my relationships as well. I'd already had, long-term relationships with many professors that are faculty advisors. I've been in my position now for a little over 8 years. Mm-hmm. So to get to meet many of those that I've been emailing with and having phone calls with, to meet them in person and shake their hands and just kind of have that face-to-face has made all the difference in the world. So I'm really excited to see where that will take me moving forward.
Of course, that direct impact, or you're seeing those relationships further strengthen, building upon. So for those that may be looking to join as a professional partner, if you had to summarize maybe like your top 1 to 3 reasons why you think they should be a professional partner, what would you say or tell them? And Val, I'll start with you.
I think some of the top 3 reasons I would say to become a professional partner is 1, brand recognition for your organization. Just the exposure you get to students and faculty is second to none. It just adds credibility of who you are in the space, whether you're an accounting firm, an industry company, or a corporation, a review course provider, another association, state society, definitely will add some value and credibility to who you are. Secondly, as an individual representing your organization, I think it helps your own personal network. I think I've spoken to how that network has helped me, and that's probably my number 1. Of course, I'm happy for my company, but in fact, my company's even told me, when you post, can you post as the company and not yourself? Because I'm so in habit of posting individually to my social media. And so I've had to make conscious efforts to make sure I post as my company. And then third, the rewarding experience of knowing the impact you're having on those that you're serving.
Great way to summarize. And Alex, for you?
I actually just want to piggyback and say all 3 of those things are really super important to me. And my favorite part about working with students in any capacity, but especially Beta Alpha Psi, is just the energy. Yep. It's unmatched. The kids are excited. They're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I also really like the alumni network that you guys have going on, and to see what kind of impacts Beta Alpha Psi has made on everyone, and that you guys are still coming back to help after you're no longer a student. I think that's just awesome.
Yeah. And obviously, we're talking and having you both on for the concept of a transition as well, and Val's big announcement. So I do want to give you space to give an update to those that are listening, what that announcement specifically is, and then we can further talk about some of the succession planning efforts that have been away.
Yeah, so I've been in this space 30 years this year, so it seemed like an appropriate year to finally make the decision to retire. So I'm not only retiring from my organization, Gleim, but I'm also stepping down from Beta Alpha Psi. I've been with Beta Alpha Psi for 20 years this year. And while I am sad to be leaving my professional space with my company, I've built some long-standing relationships in this industry, specifically with Gleim. I'm probably more sad about stepping away from Beta Alpha Psi, because it has been the organization that has energized me over the years and has really kept me going. You get into ruts working, and it's not until you can get out and be in front of individuals that you're serving that you get re-energized, as Alex mentioned a moment ago. The students are so energetic. They're so thankful for what you're offering them, and just the lifelong friendships I have built within the organization that I know many of them I'll still continue to have as I leave. I'm connected with many of them on an individual basis through my social media, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm going to miss this.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to miss you too. And I know it feels a little bit nostalgic for us to be at the annual meeting when you and I co-chaired together the annual meeting last year. And so a bit bittersweet, but I know that you've had an incredible career and also the value you've provided and the impact you've made. So I hope that you do know that. And for those of our listeners that may be in the profession already, they're looking in the future. I know myself, I'm curious of how you knew or felt content with that decision of retirement, or just knowing, I guess, from a timing perspective, or feeling like this is a transition that makes sense for me. Can you speak a little bit to that, or maybe those cues that you had for yourself?
Certainly. Early on in our lives, my husband and I both never felt like we would get to a place where we could retire. But just due to some jobs and circumstances, we're fortunate enough to be able to be in a place where we could seriously think about retiring. My husband retired a year ago, and he asked me at the time, "Are you going to retire with me?" And I'm like, "No, heavens no. I am not ready to let go of this stuff. I am in it for a while." And that was 2023. And as most candidates know, most professors know, the exam was undergoing a huge change coming up that launched in January of 2024. And as a company, we had a huge undertaking in order to get our products updated for that new exam and make sure that we can continue to be that resource to students to make sure that they're successful as they pursue their CPA. And so I was focused on that. That was my driving force in my career at the time, was everything was focused on the new exam. But as we got that product done and we got it to market, I felt like it was almost like a ha-ha moment, okay, that big project is done. Mm-hmm. My husband's in the back side of me saying, "When are you retiring? When are you retiring?" I'm seeing him out and about with his friends and doing all this other stuff during the day, and he's wanting to go to lunch, and I'm like, "I've got a meeting at 1, I can't, so it was like, okay, maybe now is the time. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at some of the years, this year was 30 years in the industry. This year was 20 years in Beta Alpha Psi. I'm like, what great milestones to end on. And I had done pretty much everything I wanted to do outside of being a Beta Alpha Psi president, which I had really wanted to do and actually had pursued it a few years ago, but the timing wasn't right, and was approached about considering it for this year. And when I was approached about it, I'm like, oh man. I'm like, had you asked me this 2 years ago, I probably would have had a different answer. And I had to really divulge that between you and me, the person I was talking to, I'm like, I'm going to probably retire in 2024 sometime. I said, so it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair to you, and it wouldn't be fair to my husband, because he would have had a fit if I was going to have to stay in for 3 more years, because I knew it was a 3-year commitment. And while I'm sad about not achieving that, I am perfectly content with all that I have done with this organization. But I also knew that when I left, I needed to make sure that there was somebody to take over.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to have the opportunities and the blessings that I've received from this organization. And it was a no-brainer for me to recommend Alex to my company as being my successor here with Beta Alpha Psi.
And can you speak a little bit to that succession plan, what's been put in place, or techniques, or those conversations to make sure that you as a mentor are providing the appropriate resources before finalizing?
So I had given my company 2 months notice of me retiring. And that allowed me the opportunity to be able to put together some documentation and have meetings and conversations about what it is, not only in this role, but all my other capacities within the company, and made sure that I was able to hand off and that they were going to be able to pick up from where I left off and take off. I didn't want to be that employee that left and everybody say, oh, she left us in a mess, or I don't know what she was doing when she did that. I wanted to make sure that I left leaving a good taste in the mouth of people that I was leaving behind. Mm-hmm. And so when it came time for me to talk about the succession planning for Beta Alpha Psi and the professional partner role, I had conversations with our CEO, and I am such a huge supporter of Beta Alpha Psi, and I wanted to make sure that Gleim continued that relationship with Beta Alpha Psi. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to have happen is for them to decide to not do something with them. And so my conversations with the CEO was I really hope you will consider the value that Beta Alpha Psi does bring to your organization, and making sure she was aware of that. And then more importantly, tagging somebody that I knew would be able to benefit from being in this role. And, Alex hasn't said, but Alex also works really closely with the IMA student leadership organizations on campuses. And so because I knew she did that, and I knew her strong relationships with faculty, I thought, this is just a natural progression for her. Yeah. And so making sure that she was aware of all that the organization does. It's the reason I technically retired at the end of June.
Yeah.
Here is the end of July. And I asked my company, I'm like, would you consider allowing me to come to the Beta Alpha Psi annual meeting and handing this off officially to Alex, and making sure Alex made the connections that I had made so that she would be set up for success.
Yeah.
And while there's some people I hadn't got a chance for her to meet, I have introduced her to a lot of people. And I think she's excited about making those same connections and growing those relationships going forward.
And Alex, can you speak a little bit to the process of coming in and having Val as a mentor with that succession planning? Were there questions you were asking or things that, for anyone coming into a new role or responsibility, what helped you, or can you speak a little bit to that process too?
Absolutely. Valerie actually voluntarily gave me all of the information that I would need, even so much so that in her first week of being retired, she was messaging me, asking me, did I have things that I needed for Beta Alpha Psi? Was I comfortable? Did I have any questions? And even that kind of just blew me away, because it's your first week out and she's still worried about me and making sure that I'm successful. And I think that just speaks volumes. I have met so many different people. Many of them I already are obviously new, but to meet them in person was just a big deal. I had no idea how much love this organization had for Valerie until I got to see it in person. And that's just overflowing into me. So I really am excited to take the torch. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fill her shoes, but hopefully some other shoes of my own I'll be able to fill, maybe in a similar capacity.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you on and welcome. And, Val, in terms of wrap up or looking at your career with Beta Alpha Psi, can you give us your favorite moment? If you had to pick one, or, if it's too hard for one, you can definitely give more than one. But what for you is going to stand out, or when you look back and think of Beta Alpha Psi, what's that first memory coming to mind?
I think that the relationships I've built obviously are incredible, but having the time to spend with the professional partners outside of the meeting, doing things socially with the partners, it's really strengthened my relationships with those partners. The experiences that we've had at dinners, after dinner events that we have done, I'll try to keep it I won't go into detail, but we've had some incredible experiences, and I shared those things, and we still talk about them to this day. It came up the other day at sitting at the tables waiting for a keynote. We were still having conversations about, do you remember that meeting where we did that? And those kind of experiences really just are in my heart. I will never forget those. And so those are some of my best times. And My other favorite time at Beit FSI has been doing the professional sessions and speaking to students. Again, it goes back to my love for making sure that students are set up for success and seeing them succeed. And so when I know and feel that I'm making an impact by something I said or something I showed them, I love that. I'm doing a presentation, my last one, which I think is funny. I retired and I still signed up to do a presentation, but
you got to go out with such a big bang.
Like,
you know what
I'm
I mean?
going to go out
right after
on
this.
top here. So, getting to talk to a room full of students and answering their questions.
Yeah. Well, I know you're having that session right after this, and I always appreciate your time coming on this. I know this was something we wanted to get you on, and I'm glad that we could do that. And Alex, for yourself coming into the role, can you speak a little bit to what you're most excited for, or as you look out for the next year or two in this transition?
I'm actually most excited to help students shape their technical and their soft skills. Again, I didn't realize it was something that the professional partners were so involved in. And I actually got to help with the best practices yesterday at an event and go through the sheet that you guys were talking about as far as judging and see, how everyone is judged, the different categories. All of the students did such an amazing job. It was so hard to choose between the winners. But in that moment, I realized that I can learn something from each and every one of those students. So as much as I think we can bring to them, I think it's also important for me to continue to learn from the students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've hit on versatility that you just did, the concept of flexibility. As I look, especially from your perspective as being a exam review provider and an educational provider within the space, there's been a lot of change when you look at the last 5 years. And the concept of change is becoming more and more relevant, and how students can interact with change or being flexible in the profession, or for even those that have been in the profession for years, the concept to adapt and be proactive versus reactive, I think, is really important. So can you provide a recommendation, or where you see the profession potentially going? And, Val, with your years of experience of what you've seen concur over the last 10 years, is there any feedback you can give to either students or professionals in the space right now that will help better set them up for success?
Absolutely. I mean, I have seen the industry go through an enormous amount of change over the 30 years that I've been in this space, but it's been more rapid in these last 5 years, as you mentioned. And I think it's just important for individuals, whether you're a student or whether you're a faculty, that you maintain an open mind and don't settle on, well, that's the way we did things before, and that's the way things are always going to be, because they're not. And they're not going to be the same. And being open to new ideas, whether it's your career path, whether it's what you teach, how you teach it, being open to doing that. And because, this digital world that we're now living in, the CPA space, as we heard yesterday with the AI conversation, it is going to infiltrate everything that we're doing. I don't know that AI is going to infiltrate the exam anytime soon, although, they're already having conversations about what that might look like. So who knows what's going to happen. But I guess the biggest thing is don't settle on the way you've always done things or the way you've always thought about things, because it's not going to work.
Yeah. Great advice. Alex, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely an overarching theme of the conference is taking a look at your own individual path. I think definitely what we've seen from the keynote speakers is that fortune favors the bold. And I think one of the things that Gleim could really help with there is that a traditional path for an accountant has always been seen as a CPA, but something that we also do in the accounting space is the CIA, the CMA, and the EA. You yourself are an EA or an enrolled agent, which is a tax specialty. So recognizing, where your individual path has been and where you have the potential to go, I think is my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one size fits all, one path. And I think that's something that's harder for students. And I know when I was younger to understand, you feel almost structured. You want to be in a box, but yet getting out of the box, or when you have those exposures and experiences that I feel in my career and just personally as well have been most valuable
Yeah.
So taking advantage of opportunity. I know, Alex, we're looking forward to your opportunity as a professional partner and being affiliated with Beta Alpha Psi. So I really appreciate your time on the podcast today talking about succession planning, how we can look at the future. Val's great, service history, as well as Alex, you coming in. So thank you so much again for coming on for both of you. And thank you to our listeners and viewers. I hope you got a lot out of this conversation, either both in terms of personal development, how you can engage more with our professional network and community. But we will see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, everyone. Danielle here with the credits. This episode, titled Passing of the Torch, was hosted by myself, Danielle Bradley. The episode was produced by Riley Ramos and accompanied by our two special guests, Valerie Wendt and Alex Graham. Music was sourced from Resolute Audio and fine-tuned music on Adobe Stock. Huge shout out to Beta Alpha Psi for their financial support and keeping our podcast growing strong. If you haven't already, please join the Alumni Member Network. Details can be found in the show notes. Thank you again for joining and tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional.